It was in the heat of the summer months. I was 10 years old and my younger brother was 7. We were outside playing with neighborhood kids before heading inside as the sun set. Now, maybe once a week my brother and I would be left at home alone while our parents went out to eat at a restaurant nearby. Most of the time, they would let us know before leaving, but occasionally, if we were outside playing, they'd simply leave us to our game. This weekend would be different. Keep watching. You won't believe what happens next. When we returned home, our parents weren't there. We guessed that they'd gone out to dinner as usual. We later confirmed this by a message placed on the kitchen counter. My brother and I both went to the living room to watch television, as we always did before going to sleep. It was pitch dark outside when the doorbell rang and then there was knocking. I initially assumed it was our parents returning, but it wasn't typical for them to enter through the front door, much less without a key. The likelihood of both the garage door opener malfunctioning and them forgetting their key was pretty low. Despite the fact I thought it was unlikely, I went to the front door anyway. I heard a man's voice as I neared the door saying Girl Scout cookies for sale. I was shocked to see a grown man completely alone with no cookies in his hand and no child with him. The man yelled out again before reaching for the door handle. My heart sank. I realized that we had forgotten to lock the door when going in for the night. The door handle slowly began to turn, prompting me to immediately activate the deadbolt. A clicking sound rang out easily heard by the man, who now knew someone was inside. I waited a minute before glancing through the peephole. The man was now peering through our living room window straight at my younger brother, who was entirely clueless of what was going on. From the peephole, I could see a revolver holstered on the man's left side of his waist. I raced back to the living room and closed the blinds. I told my brother we should have some ice cream below in the basement because I needed to keep him away from any windows. I knew if he understood what was going on, he'd be scared. He agreed and we headed downstairs. I secretly shut the basement door behind us. We ate our ice cream, and eventually I heard the hum of the garage door opening from upstairs, indicating that my parents had returned home. Later, when my brother had gone to bed, I told my parents what had happened, and they were horrified and understandably called the police. The police inspected the place, and one of the first things they noticed was how the front door's lock had clearly been tampered with, confirming the man was trying to break in. The man was never identified to this day. Sometimes I wonder if I was dreaming or maybe visited by some being. This occurred soon after I turned 15. As a birthday present from my parents, I was given my own Xbox and a display monitor that enabled me to play in my room. Since my room was upstairs, I naturally spent a lot of time up in my room. Both my parents had gone on a weekend getaway. I'm 15, so of course I was not scared to stay home alone. It was a late Friday night. I was in my bedroom playing Xbox online with 2 of my schoolmates. Despite having my headphones on very loud, I overheard a pounding sound coming from the basement. Any unusual sound causes your mind to immediately imagine the worst. I turned down the volume to listen, but heard nothing. After about 5 minutes, the same noise returned. I informed my 2 friends about it this time, and they both urged me to go check it out. They made jokes about how someone may have broken in or a ghost. I laughed and promised to check it out at the next break in our game. I removed my headphones and headed for the stairs. As I started to go down the stairs, I heard a quiet murmuring. I was only halfway down when I suddenly froze. I listened intently, trying to determine whether or not what I was hearing was real. Eventually, I knelt down to look into the living room, where I saw 4 grown men walking around silently while completely covered in black. I was unable to process what I had seen. All I knew was that I needed to return upstairs and hide. I gradually began going back up the stairs when, of course, one of the steps began to creak loudly, which rang throughout the entire house. My heart sank. There was no way they could have missed it. When the room fell silent once more, thinking quickly, I hurried to my room, put on my headset, and ordered my buddies to call the cops. They seemed perplexed and now in a panic. I encouraged them to hurry and laid my headset down on my desk. I knew that locking myself in my room would not be the best course of action, indicating I was inside. I still locked and closed the door. I had to think quick, so I hid in the bathroom with the door slightly ajar and the lights off, hoping they would not think I was there. I covered my mouth, afraid they could hear me breathing. Suddenly, I could hear several pairs of boots slowly ascending the stairs. As it grew louder, I could also hear someone hammering on my bedroom door down the hall. This banging wasn't to get my attention. Rather, someone was obviously attempting to break down the door. Voices began crying out, telling me to open the door if I didn't want anything horrible to happen to me. I was so scared I stood up and frantically opened the bathroom window. I must have made a lot of noise because just as the door to the bathroom fully opened, a pair of boots could be seen making their way inside. I succeeded in jumping out the window head first. I fell heavily, but I was able to gaze up to the bathroom window where a shadow was frozen in place, staring back at me. At that moment, the backyard doors swung open and 3 guys ran towards me. Before I could get up, the 3 of them began to grab me, dragging me back towards the house. At this point, the sound of approaching police sirens stopped them. I felt so lucky. The 3 of them came to a stop, turned to face each other, and jumped the fence. I never saw them again. The police arrived in the backyard. I told them which direction the guys had gone, and a number of them headed that way while another stayed with me. While police were questioning me that night, my 2 friends with whom I was playing Xbox pulled into the driveway on their bikes. To this day, I routinely thank them for calling the police, as it probably saved my life. The only man that was caught that night was the one inside the house. The other 3 were never found. 4 different knives and a few loaded guns were discovered left behind in the home. I grew up in the middle of nowhere. My family had a farm, and we lived in a farmhouse with a gravel road leading up to our house. I was 16 at the time. This evening I was home alone. It was getting close to midnight. I was sitting on our couch in the living room, watching a movie with Bear, our family dog who we'd had for years. He wasn't the most active dog and could easily sit through a whole movie motionless by my side. Suddenly, Bear's ears shot up and his head turned around. I turned off the television and didn't hear anything. Bear remained completely focused in one direction, towards the front door. My first thought was that someone was at the door, but this wouldn't make sense given the house's location. You have to go completely out of your way to get to our house. I don't think we've ever had someone come to our door who we weren't expecting. Like, this stuff just doesn't happen out here. I brushed it off as an animal and turned the TV back on. Shortly after this, Bear started quietly growling, still looking in the same direction. In the time I've known this dog, I'd heard him growl maybe 2 other times. So by this time, I decided whatever was out there, I had to go check it out. So I took one of our family's numerous firearms and went up to the front door, opened it, and saw nothing. So I stepped out about 30 yards and peered down into the darkness. Nothing but black emptiness. I turned around and started to walk back towards the house before stopping myself. Sitting on the edge of the deck was a man who was curled up in the fetal position and appeared to be attempting to conceal himself into the darkness of the night. I was not about to approach him directly, so I made my way around to the back door as quietly as I could. It was unlocked since we always leave our doors open. We don't usually have to worry about theft around here. As soon as I entered, I went back to the front door, slammed it shut before doing the same with the other windows and doors in the house. I phoned the cops, and they arrived after a full 30 minutes. They checked the entire property, but found nothing or no one. While this was partly soothing, part of me honestly began to believe I had dreamt the encounter, or could have been visited by some entity or evil spirit. After the cops departed, I ultimately decided just to go to bed with the lights on. The following morning, I got up and went down to the kitchen to start preparing breakfast. But as I went to take a knife to chop some fruit, I couldn't help but notice one of the knives was gone. I stood there bewildered. I was sure it was there the night before. I got a terrible feeling. I decided to phone the police again. 2 policemen arrived, and this time they searched inside of the home. I remained outside when they did so. After a few minutes, the 2 cops came back out with a thin-looking man in handcuffs. The man was discovered beneath the basement stairs, clutching a knife with both hands. It was the knife missing from my kitchen. After a brief struggle, the man was apprehended. This was the same man that was hiding outside. I know the man said nothing when asked about what he was doing out here and what he had planned, but the fact that he grabbed a knife couldn't mean anything good. I still think about what would have happened if the man had found me sleeping.